And welcome everyone to Beyond the Forecast. Happy Friday, and hopefully you have a stellar Friday evening and weekend planned ahead. But what we are going to jump in for today is a little bit of summer weather items that will give you a little bit of science, but also weather. Meteorologist Haley Fischetti is going to jump into the UV index, what it is, and how you can keep yourself safe from harmful rays of sunlight. So she's going to explain that for you coming up. And then we send it over to meteorologist John Gross, who will break down water spouts. But believe it or not, water spouts, not typical with severe weather crossing the lakes. It's actually more season-based. Temperature change is where you tend to see more water spouts. So he's going to give you the science and the weather behind water spouts and what weather we typically see with those water spouts across the Great Lakes, because we do tend to see a ton of water spouts, especially spring and fall. And then it is Viewer Question Friday. So at the end of the show, you ask a question, we have the breakdown of science and weather for you. But before we get to those awesome segments, let's take a look at some fun facts. First up, this day in weather history. Now, we go back to May 16th, 1975. Thunderstorms produced golf ball-sized hail and wind gusts upwards of 110 miles per hour in Hugo, Minnesota, where 50 people were injured. The hail and high winds destroyed mobile homes, a dozen aircrafts, and a third of an elementary school. So that was with storms on this day back in 1975 in Minnesota. So that's pretty wild. The thing that gets me is the aircrafts. A dozen aircrafts were damaged by the hail and winds. Pretty wild. All right, trivia time. Yesterday, we asked you, true or false, lightning usually follows volcanic eruptions. That's actually true. So when a volcano erupts, all of that ash, all of the gas, all of that ascends. Now, as it continues to ascend, well, it's friction rubbing up against each other and causing friction, which leads to lightning developing. So you see the volcano erupt, that ash, the gas, everything is ascending, creating that friction, which gives it that spark, and you tend to see lightning in volcanic eruptions. Pretty cool science there for you. All right, today we're asking, true or false, fire whirls, aka firenadoes, are real. True or false? QR code right there. Hit it with your phone. It'll take you to the page where you can put your answer in. But we want to know, are firenadoes real? Or is it just Hollywood? We'll tell you on Monday on Beyond the Forecast. All right, viewer photo of the day, brought to you, as always, by Great Rooms. Today's viewer photo of the day is sent in from Ashley Massey. Now, Ashley sent this in and said it is just a beautiful, beautiful cardinal on a nice day. And yes, this gorgeous male cardinal sitting there, chilling. And I've seen a lot of cardinals this year. We've had a lot of cardinals at our home. We have bird feeders and squirrel feeders, and we even have a little picnic table that the squirrels sit at. We've had a male and female cardinal hanging around, and it's just so cool to see them. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's age. As I'm getting older, I love to see the birds. Maybe. I don't know. But yes, thank you, Ashley, for sending in that absolutely beautiful photo. And thank you to Great Rooms for sponsoring viewer photo of the day. Now, coming up next, we are going to send it over to meteorologist Haley Fischetti. As we've been seeing the hummers and the bird pictures that you've been sending in to us in the warmer weather, we need to give you the UV index. What is it, and how can it keep you safe? She'll have all those details coming up right after the break.
Welcome back to Beyond the Forecast. It's meteorologist Haley Fischetti, and today we're going to talk about the UV index. As we get closer into the spring and summer months, enjoying more of the sunshine, we want to go out and start tanning, maybe trying to get some color after all the winter months. And it's good to know what the UV index is so you can stay prepared as we head into the summer months, as we are going to see brighter and brighter skies throughout the day. So the UV is ultraviolet radiation. This is wavelengths that normally come from the sun. Radiation that comes into the Earth's surface. It helps, one, warm up our surface, allowing your temperatures to rise throughout the day, but also shows us more of that sunlight that we use to maybe get a tan in the summer, and what also plants use to grow. And that's why you're seeing a lot of that green leaves now across northern Michigan. Now, the UV index is actually a measurement scale that we use to show the intensity from the sun. So you might notice that sometimes on really cloudy days, you might have a low UV index compared to on really, really bright days, you might have a high UV index. And the scale normally goes from around 0 to 11 plus. Here in northern Michigan, you don't see a lot of 11 plus days. That's mainly for areas, say maybe closer to the equator, for areas even in Florida might see that. But let's actually break down the scale. So here's a look at that UV index. This is from the EPA online, looking at low conditions, less than 2 on the UV range. This is when you need little to no protection from the sun, sunglasses, a hat. If you're in the snow, you can actually see a little bit of a sunburn sometimes, as it can get doubled to your UV range. So staying protected even on cloudy days is always going to be great, but that's where you can see little to no protection. Moderate is around 3 to 5. Sometimes that's in the morning hours in the summertime, starting to wear a little bit more of that SPF, the sun protection, when you continue to go outside. High is around 6 to 7. That's when you normally see it in the afternoon, even for very high, around 8 to 10. This is where we normally sit on really sunny days, no clouds in the sky, in the middle of the day, in the afternoon, where we have the most sun. This is when you need to stay protected from the sun, wearing higher SPFs depending on how your skin can take the sun, wearing sunglasses, hats, staying in the shade, maybe even avoiding going outside if you can't handle the sun. And that's the case for extreme as well. If you're around 11 plus, that's when it's very, very bright out there. You can almost burn your skin in a matter of an hour, even minutes, if you're not protected. That's why all of these ranges, you have to stay somewhat protective. It just depends on what range we normally sit in, which for here in northern Michigan, it is around 6 to 7 to around 8 to 10, that high to very high range. But here's some things you can do when it comes to the UV index. Of course, we talked about it, stay protected, hat, sunglasses, sunscreen. Make sure you're reapplying throughout the day, even when it's maybe sweaty or you're going into water. You need to continue to prep for the sun. There's also this fun thing called the shadow rule. So if you go outside and you look at the pavement and you see your shadow and your shadow is taller than you, that means there is lower UV exposure at the moment. This normally happens in the evening and in the morning. So you can kind of use that as a judge if you have to put on more sunscreen or SPF. Shorter shadow for a view is going to actually be higher exposure. So that's like your middle of the day, the jackpot when you're tanning on the sun, on the beach. That's when you need to wear the most protection from the sun exposure. So this is a little bit about the UV index as we continue into the summer months, making sure you're not getting sunburned, staying protected, of course, as not staying protected from the sun can lead to some harm to your body. But we'll have more information and more details over on Beyond the Forecast.
Thanks, Haley, and great information as we are heading into those warmer months. Now, coming up next, we're going to send it over to meteorologist John Gross, who is going to talk to us about water spouts. That's right. We did have that severe weather yesterday and a lot of rotation over the lake, but did you know that water spouts actually occur not so much in severe weather, but more the changing in air temperature? We'll have all those details right after the break.
Hey there, everybody. Meteorologist John Gross, and today we're going to be talking about a topic that gets a lot of people's attention, and you may have seen one in real life. We're talking about water spouts. Now, when you hear the word water spout, you might think, well, that's just a tornado over water, and if it happens to move onto land, we categorize it as a tornado. Now, you would be correct when you're talking about a tornadic water spout. However, we have two different types. Not only the tornadic, but we also have what's called a fair weather water spout. Now, their environment, the way they develop, very, very different. When you're talking about the tornadic water spout, you need a lot of what you need for a tornado on land to develop. You need a severe storm, you need a rotating updraft, and where we see them develop is from the base of the cloud, and then it drops down to the surface. A little bit different when we're talking about the fair weather water spout. Usually, we're talking about a pretty nice day. But the main thing we need for the fair weather water spout is what we call a boundary. Now, that can occur with moisture, That can occur with a land breeze, that can occur with a big temperature differentiation, but that's usually the originating way of how the fair weather waterspout can occur. Now, instead of it starting at the base of the cloud and going down to the surface, we have the rotation occurring at the surface, and we actually see it building up throughout the atmosphere, eventually to the base of the cloud. So those are the differences between the tornadic and the fair weather waterspout. Now, when you're talking about the tornadic waterspout, again, this is pretty much saying we're talking about a tornado over water. That's about as 101 as it gets. So you're talking about the tornado just over the water instead of land. If it happens to move onto land, we can categorize it as a tornado. Very, very dangerous. Not a good place to be if you're out in the water, if you're on the boat, doing some fishing, kayaking. You want to get on land. You want to get away from this tornadic waterspout. And still, these are associated with strong to severe storms. So not a place you want to be, especially outside, when we're talking about tornadic waterspouts. Now, here's what we talk about with the fair weather waterspouts. Now, usually, we're not talking about a big severe weather day. We can have a very nice day occur when you have a fair weather waterspout develop, but we need what we call that boundary. Now, that boundary is usually at the surface, and it can come in different varieties. You can talk about a temperature boundary, you can talk about a moisture versus dry boundary, you can talk about a lake breeze, and here being in the Great Lakes, we can see lake breezes occur all the time. Now, when you're talking about springtime or fall time, that's usually when we have the big differentiations in temperatures. So that's when fair weather waterspouts are a little bit more prone to occur. But we need that boundary initially, and that's where our winds, well, they're coming together, otherwise known as what we call convergence. And when those winds come together, they have nowhere to go but up. So that's what you're going to talk about when you start to see that circulation forming. Not only are the winds coming together, but now we're starting to see them rotate a little bit right there near the surface. And then again, that air, once it starts to converge, it comes together, it has nowhere to go but up. So that wind direction changes, leads to your rotation, and then that air right near your boundary, it starts to freely rise. So once we start to see that occur, then we start to see what we call non-thunderstorm clouds forming, and that's all due again to our rising air, so that updraft from the surface now leads all the way to the base of our cloud, and that's how we can get fair weather waterspouts to occur, as we're talking about convergence near a boundary. I'm meteorologist John Gross reporting for Beyond the Forecast.
Thanks, John. Now, coming up next, it's Viewer Question Friday. You ask us a question, and we give you the answer. We break it down for science and for weather. We'll have that right after the break.
All right, Viewer Question Friday. This is where you might have some questions with some weather or science that we haven't covered in the show, or that we might have done in the past that we can bring to you now. A lot of you have been asking certain questions that me, John, or Haley might say, oh yeah, we didn't think about that. And usually with us meteorologists, it's not an ego thing, but sometimes we start talking on meteorological terms and forget like the base of what we're talking about. So sometimes viewers say, what about that? And it's like, oh, yeah, we didn't think about that. Things such as just plain old high pressure, low pressure, or what happens when this happens. Sometimes we oversee that, and that's where viewers write in and say, hey, what about this? And we say, great question. Let's answer that. So here is this week's Viewer Question Friday. I want to talk to you today about snow, but how much snow and your roof. Okay, we'll put this into kind of wild terms to think about, but we have a lot of snow starting to build up, and we have another system moving in this weekend that could give a lot of us 6 to 8 inches of more snow. And this snow is going to be a little bit heavier. It's coming in from the south. We'll have a little bit more moisture to it, but the majority of snow that we have on the ground right now is more of that light, fluffy snow. But how much snow is too much snow for your roof? A lot of people might not think about this, but snow on your roof, especially building into the 10, 12, 14 inch range, just sitting on your roof, Not good. It can actually do quite a bit of damage to your roof. Now, just 1 square foot of fluffy snow can weigh up to about 4 pounds. Now, you might say, well, that's wet, heavy snow. Actually, no, that's right around 15-to-1 snow ratio, which is what we've been seeing for the majority of northern Michigan with lake effect snow. Once you get more to 20, 25-to-1, 30-to-1, the really light fluffy snow, that weighs usually about 2 pounds per square inch. So when you start getting to 10-to-1 or even 5-to-1, that's where you're talking about 6 pounds per square inch to even 12.5 pounds per square inch. Now, we haven't seen any of that 5-to-1 snow by any means, but this system could be in the realm of 10 to possibly 12-to-1 snow ratio, so a little bit heavier. So let's take a normal sized roof, 1,000 square feet, 1.5, so 1,500 square feet, and let's start putting snow on it. So if you have 15-to-1 snow ratio, lake effect, traditional lake effect snow, very normal snow for us here in northern Michigan. If you take 15-to-1 snow ratio, put it on a 1,000 square foot roof, and give it about a foot, well, that's going to be about 4,000 pounds, because you're looking at, 4 pounds per square foot for 15-to-1 snow ratio, 1,000, well, that's about 4,000 pounds. Now, head on over to 10-to-1, that's about 6 pounds per square inch, put that on a 1,000 square foot roof. Well, that's gonna give you right around 6,500 pounds on your roof. If you go to 5-to-1, 1,000 square foot roof, 5-to-1 is about 12.5 pounds. Well, that's about 12,500 pounds on your roof. It's a lot of weight. Some may say, well, what does this all mean? Like, what's that? 12,000 pounds, that's not a lot. Well, 12,000 pounds is about 4 pickup trucks. Imagine 4 pickup trucks sitting on your roof. Or, if you're doing light fluffy snow, 4,000 pounds, that's about 1.5 pound or truck on your roof. Now imagine putting 4, 5, 6 trucks on your roof. Your roof's not gonna like that, is it? So, that's how much snow can weigh, and that's how much snow weight can damage your roof. So, some things to think about, and I know it's kind of a lost art because houses are a little bit different. Snow does usually melt, and usually you don't have a bunch of snow sitting on your roof. But they do sell items such as rakes that you can reach up and get probably 5 to 10 feet onto your roof and pull that snow off. It relieves a lot of that weight, more than you would think. So if you do have a lot of standing snow on your roof, even if it is fluffy snow, find ways to get that down, because with more snow coming in, we don't have a whole lot of melting going on until possibly the end of February, beginning of March. So something to think about, and we haven't really had to think about that in a long time. So there you go. A little science, a little weather on Valentine's Day. So surprise the love of your life by taking that weight off your roof. I mean, it'd be a good gift to give. Keep your house nice and sturdy.
So there you go. And that does it for today's Beyond the Forecast. Another week of Beyond the Forecast in the books. Episode 36, now done. We'll be back with you on Monday for episode 37. And we'll have more fun, great science and weather for you, as next week it is going to be Boater Safety Awareness Week. It's getting to that point in the year where the lakes are open, they're starting to warm up, and you might start thinking, I want to be out on the lakes. I want to start go swimming. What do you have to know with conditions, especially in the Great Lakes, when it comes to boating season and swimming season? We're going to break those all down for you, from rip currents to just getting your boat on the Great Lakes. We'll have all those details, great interviews, and more science and weather for you next week. So for meteorologist John Gross, meteorologist Haley Fischetti, I am Chief Meteorologist Michael Stevens. We appreciate you spending your afternoons with us from 4:30 to 5. We'll see you right back here, 4:30 on Monday, for more of Beyond the Forecast. Have a wonderful, safe weekend. Be good, stay safe, take care. See you on Monday.